people come into a medicine clinic, doctor might tell them, yeah, you got a stress fracture. And people that aren't athletes or who aren't physically active are going to say, well, how long can I be off work? And the people who are coming to the sports medicine clinic, the first thing they ask is, when can I go back to work? Like, when can I go back to my activity?
I love that.
And that's addicting, man.
Welcome to PricePlow.
So welcome to the PricePlow podcast. We have with us Dr. Kaleb Redden, who is the newest member of Team Kaged Muscle. Kaleb's over in Boise, Idaho, and we've already been talking for about 9 minutes, and we're catching up on how he motivates patients. But Kaleb has been the team doctor for all the Kaged Muscle, or maybe all of the nearly all the Kaged Muscle athletes. And you have recently come on board as a sponsored athlete, as well as and you're going to continue, I guess, as a doctor as well. And so we'd just love to hear from how you're taking some of the principles from Kris Gethin and applying them into how you do things yourself. Because it seems like we kind of all speak the same language and have a very strong, like, nutrition first type of philosophy. But you clearly are a hard worker and can push people to work very hard too. So welcome aboard officially here.
Yeah, it's a real honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you guys. I mean, I've been researching your site and really impressed with, the product that you guys give, the content that you provide for people, and the service that you provide by reviewing products, supplements. When I say products, a lot of times that becomes more than just a dietary supplement. Like the content that you provide and the information that you provide, that's the product that you guys are providing. I think y'all do a great job. So I'm thrilled to be here. Grateful for the opportunity. I work. I'm a sports medicine physician, so I trained, did a residency in primary care, so family practice, and then I did extra training in orthopedics and sports medicine. So now I'm basically my clinic job is non-surgical orthopedics. So I do all types of sports medicine. So from top of your head, your toes, any muscle, joint, bones, nerves, all that stuff, and then all the metabolic processes. And so I've definitely been working with a great number of the Kaged Muscle athletes for the past few years. Not all of them, obviously, but a few of them, and as a consultant. And so over the last 4 to 6 months, I've been working with Kaged Muscle to be their team doctor for their athletes. They've got a large number of athletes that are sponsored. And a lot of times those guys have their own physicians that are in their hometowns, but it's hard to find a physician who lifts weights or understands the fitness industry. And so I sort of fit that niche for them, so I can be a health consultant for the athletes. And then also, I'm no Olympic athlete like Dalton, but I'm a fairly strong guy, and I definitely live the lifestyle as far as lifting weights. Like it's not just kind of pussyfooting around. Like I really get after it. And so I feel like I match pretty well with the Kaged Muscle team. And so, yeah, I've been really grateful and honored to be part of their program. And I'm helping out with dietary information, with supplemental information, with health information, with, biomechanics and rehab and all these things. And then also, helping Gethin and the other athletes with their own health and their own mortality. And that's what I think that I love so much about Kaged Muscle in general, is that their focus really is on living your best life, being as healthy as you can be, longevity, making weightlifting and bodybuilding and fitness a part of your life, not the entirety of your life. I mean, I think that oftentimes, at least I know I'm guilty of being in my earlier life. It was, I just want to get as big as I can get, as strong as I can get, and I don't care if it's if I die young and I'm in a big friggin' coffin, that's good enough for me. Like, I just want to be huge, but I realized along the way that was sort of a ridiculous way to live life. And so I've made some changes, and I think I see those changes in some of the professional bodybuilders that are kind of aging. They're understanding that there's more to it, and you can do this forever. So really excited.
So at what age did that that shift start to happen, or did anything specific, or was it just an age thing where some of it gets with us? And before I stop talking, I have the new pink lemonade pre-cage. That's what I'll be drinking right here.
What do you think? That's pretty good stuff.
I love it. Yeah, it only needs 12 ounces of water, which I guess is a big feedback. I don't mind the other flavors that you could just throw down 20 ounces of water, but I can see for some of the smaller people, or people just want a shot, like this is it's a really good flavor, and it's just like my whole idea was it was just professionally designed. Like when you get something from Brian Rand, you just know like how much care and time went into it. And I said in our little Instagram video, like Kaged Muscle isn't just rushing products out every 3 weeks. This is not how it's done.
Yeah.
But when you get something like this, they listen to the consumer feedback. People want to use a little bit less water, so I only have like 12 ounces of water here, and they take their time to do it right. And so with the, there's mostly stevia in here, natural colors, natural flavors. Kris tries to keep it as less artificial as possible. And there is some sucralose on the back end, but at the end of the day, with all that said, and the fact that it's drug tested for the athletes, I couldn't be more enthusiastic about how this product was ahead of its time and is still in our top 5 pre-workout list. And this new flavor. I'm not a huge pink lemonade fan, but they split like the sweet and the tart right down the middle. So
yeah, me too, man.
positive.
I'm not a big lemonade fan. I really am not. But I got a bottle of it myself. In fact, I've got some here in my drink bucket as well. And I was like quite surprised. I was like, man, I'm really digging this. Like I wasn't sure I was gonna like it because I'm not a lemonade fan. But yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. Like, and you stated that eloquently. Like they really do a phenomenal job of producing a quality product that. If you're going to use supplements, you should drink or use things that are going to be safe for you and healthy for you and help you achieve your goals. And, if you're going to be for instance, a college athlete or a pro athlete and you have restrictions on banned substances, you need to have a product that's third-party tested and as pure as possible. Yeah. And I think they are really tip of the spear when it comes to that.
Definitely. But yeah, let's get back to you a little bit. We can talk Kaged Muscle all day long, of course. And we have with Kris Gethin. We can link back to our other podcast interview with him from late 2017. But yeah, so when did you kind of make your shift when you didn't need to be as big as possible? What age were you at there?
I think it was when I hit 30. To be honest with you, I started kind of falling apart. It was kind of a transition point in my life where I was a dad, my kids were growing up, and, being really big, I wasn't able to play with them. We'd be jumping around on the tramp and I'd be like winded, like gassed, like my lungs would hurt. And my older son would want to go play football in the park and run routes and stuff. And I was an athlete. Like I played sports in college and after college and through med school, all I could do was lift weights. And I thought, well, I'm just going to get as big as I can get and strong as I can get. And started kind of breaking down. I've had some really significant injuries that, right, wrong, or indifferent, helped me see a little bit more of that. I'm not bulletproof. I am capable of getting hurt, and waking up in pain every morning sucks. And then when you're hurt and you can't lift at all, it's like, well, what good does that do you? And then I realized too, my body, we all have genetic potential. We all have genetic limitations. And I had to eat ridiculous amounts of food all day, every day. And it was like consuming my life for months and months and months at a time. And then my gym sessions were taking so much time that I was missing out on family life and I was getting hurt. And so I decided, well, maybe instead of just trying to be as big as I can be, maybe I'll try to improve the quality of my physique and my overall health and my overall fitness. And by fitness, I mean cardiovascular, lung potential and gut health and everything. Like I want to be physically fit, and being strong is part of that. I want it to look strong, but I want it to be strong and be able to function well and be able to run a 5K with my kids if I needed to, or go mountain biking with my wife. She still kicks my ass, but at least I can kind of keep up with her now. When I was 30 pounds heavier, I couldn't, so I would say around 30. By the time I was 32, 33, it was very evident that me trying to be a 400-pound monster just wasn't going to happen. So changed my goals a little bit.
Definitely.
That's something that I've really run into. It's frustrating. I think you kind of mentioned genetic potential before, and previously, I don't know if we're going to be able to splice it in here, but you talk about people like Jesse Norris who they're just built to carry muscle mass.
Yep.
I'm 6'4", and I graduated high school at 170 pounds. I'm not saying I should be at that weight, but I'm a lanky dude. So to put muscle on myself is very difficult. And I'm 265 right now. My coach wants me to be 275. And it's like you can only push food for so long before. I'm not married. I don't have kids, so I do have some liberties with my time and stuff. But it still consumes your time. You know, I'm working. It's like I have to take breaks from work to go cook food and eat it, and
Yeah.
it takes away from your life.
Yeah. And you know, I worked with like some pro football players and college football players, and like especially linemen, right? So like got big dudes, big people.
Yeah.
That they go to college, big dudes, and then they get bigger, and then they go to the NFL and get bigger, and then when they finally hang it up, because football is a game of mortality, right? Like, you don't play that forever. It's not like golf. Like, you can't play when you're 80. You know what I mean? So they finally finish, and then they can't do life. Like they come and talk to me like, Doc, I can't do anything. Like, I'm really good at pushing people around for 5-10 seconds at a time, but you know, I can't walk up the stadium stairs now to go watch a concert because my knees hurt and my back hurts and I can't breathe. And I'm like, you know, like, what are your goals in life? That's really what it comes down to. Like, what are your goals in life? And really, if you're 265 versus 275, and then you get really lean and you show off that muscle, you know, you're gonna have a set point that changes a little bit every time, but you give up a little bit every time too, right?
Yeah.
So like, the heavier you get, the more risk you have for sleep apnea and for joint problems and things. And at some point, you know, people's goals change and shift, and you don't want to chase a goal and a dream early in life that's going to screw up your dreams later in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So looking at that longevity, I think, is important. And yeah, like these football guys that come back, like, you know, it's really interesting. The guys that I got, one buddy who he graduated college, played, he's a defensive tackle, and I think he graduated right around 310. He's a big guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5", 310. And now he weighs like 225, and he's stronger now than he ever was in college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he looks like $1 million. Like he's a strong, capable guy who doesn't need to carry around that extra weight, because all that extra weight really wasn't doing him any good in real life outside of football. So we all sort of come to that realization of like what our bodies are built to do. You know, you're a 6'4", like putting on weight on a guy that's 6'4". That, I mean, 1 pound of muscle on you looks totally different than 1 pound of muscle on a guy like Gethin, who's only 5'7", whatever he is, you know? Yeah.
And you also mentioned like the time that you take away from your family, like being at the gym, like even like past that, like, you know, I'm prepping right now for a meet. Last week, my family wanted to go apple picking, and it was the day of my squats. We walked probably like 2 miles picking these stupid apples. And I go to squat later on in the day, and it's like, I was so gassed from walking. And it's like, well, what are you going to choose? Are you going to really not live your life for, I mean, unless you're, you know, going to the Super Bowl or whatever, like, unless you're somehow being financially supported by this, like,
Right.
How much are you willing to risk?
Right.
How much are you willing to give up? And you really take, like, the other side of it too is you're taking away time at the end of your life too. Like, you know, you're putting on all that weight. So it's definitely a sobering realization to come to. It's like, it's okay to give up a little bit and live your life.
Exactly. And when you look at it as, you know, you know, it's just this balancing act, right? Because part of me, and I'm sure you're the same, I can hear it, you're the same. Part of me is like, man, I want to live 20 years a lion, just as mean and big and strong as I can possibly be, versus 7 years a lamb. But you got to realize you're not a lamb. Like, you're 265, 6'4", you're pulling 600-700 pound deadlift. Like, you're better, like, you're stronger and more of a specimen than 99% of the world. You know what I mean? Like, you're not a lamb, but we have this, we have this construct, this false reality of what we think settling would be. Like, we're settling. We're not chasing our goals. We're not pushing ourselves hard enough. We're not, you know, we're not measuring up to some imaginary bar. But really, like, you're lifting weights. You're lifting big weights. You're a big, strong guy. Like, that's pretty admirable. You know what I mean? Like, you're not sacrificing anything by, you know, taking some time to go pick apples with your family and then maybe not having a supreme squat day. There's a lot of leg days coming up. There's not a lot of time to pick apples. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that was something that, like, last year I started to realize how selfish I had been. And you know, you finish up and you meet whatever goal it is, and you look back to, like, man, I lost a lot of time. Like, that was like you think about how much time if you think about like a season for an athlete or a prep for a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, like 16 weeks is 4 months, which is a third of your year. You know, you're taking up a lot of time. So it started to dawn to me, and I know a lot of, like you said, bodybuilders are starting to see this. Bodybuilders are starting to talk about flexibility in their dieting. We did a podcast with John Meadows, who said during his entire career, every single Friday, he allowed himself to have dinner with his family, and it was it wasn't like ice cream and waffles and stuff, but it was like he allowed himself to have this social setting with his family and eat and stuff, and how important that was to him. I think that a lot of people are starting to understand you can reach huge goals and huge accolades while still being a little bit, flexible in your plan.
Right.
So.
Yeah, balanced, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure you see that with injuries. The people who are going as hard and as ridiculous, like they don't you have to have that deload, that time to allow yourself to recover.
Yeah, perfect example. I've had 4 knee surgeries and 2 back surgeries and a hip surgery from a ruptured adductor longus tendon. And 3 or 4 years ago, one of my friends died. He was really young. He was like 55. Died from a heart attack in his sleep. And he was a insanely strong individual. A guy I really looked up to. And when I trained with him, it was always really heavy, And it was sobering to me to see this guy who was just really strong, really fit to die. And on his, the day after his service, I had a session where I just went completely into another world. And we were squatting. I think we were up right around 600 pounds. And I got 600 pounds for 1 rep. And I was like, this one's for Vic. And then, his anniversary of his death was just a little bit ago. And I tried to do the same thing, like have a squat session in his honor, and I got up to 405, and that's about as far as I felt like I could go. And I felt like this inner turmoil between feeling weak. I mean, I squatted 405, twice my body weight, and I felt weak. And I thought, man, I'm letting Vic down. I'm not pushing hard enough. But then I was like, man, Vic's in his grave, and he would much rather have me healthy and, just trying to do the best I can and preserving my body and being around for my kids. And, it was a weird feeling. It was because I was ashamed that I could only squat 405. But then at the same time, I was like, that's pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
4 knee surgeries and 2 back. I'm doing all right. I'm kind of a seasoned guy here. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. That's all right. That's just fine. And so being able to be comfortable and feeling good about your progress, regardless of where you're at, and just honoring the effort that it took. I feel like that's what Vic would be proud of, is I gave my all. I wasn't like a world-class squat, but I gave my all. So I think finding that balance is important.
Yeah. Last December, when I competed, I squatted 675, which was a 75-pound all-time PR for me. But shortly after the squat, after the adrenaline wore off, I realized I had done something to my hamstring. Mm-hmm. It was pretty bad. The time where by the time I got to deadlifts, I couldn't even reach down to get to the bar. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of flossing and warming up to get it to happen. But even then, all I pulled was 665 in that meet. And I qualified for the Arnold. And even just saying that, all I pulled was 665. People are freaking out for me. You qualified for the Arnold Classic, and I'm saying to myself, I was 60 pounds under where I should have been on my deadlift. Right. But you literally did something that less than 1% of the world can do.
Right.
And so, yeah, I totally understand. You feel, you set this huge expectation for yourself. And I think that successful people in all cases do this, whether it's a strength sport or it's endurance or careers or anything, you have an expectation for yourself. And it's hard to back down off of that and see the merit.
That's what competitive drive is. You know what I mean? That feeling of never being satisfied and never feeling like you're being complacent. That's important. But at the same time, you have to walk that fine line of reasonability and make those reasonable expectations.
Cool.
I think what's cool about what you do, Dr. Kaleb, is that you could transfer that drive into other things, because it sounds like you have so many irons in the fire, and I kind of want to hear about some of the other ones. You have patience, you have Kaged Muscle, you have family, and everything. If someone who's a professional football player, that's it. And then once they hit the wall, it's there's very few things left to do. But then you see some of the most successful people, they're able to jump and just take that almost the addiction and put it into something else. So how do you manage all this time? What are all the irons that you have in the fire? Because I know you're running a clinic. You got I don't know.
Yeah.
So what all do you have going on?
But I think just real quick to speak to that, the mental fortitude, the strength, the mental and emotional strength that you build in the gym and that you build dieting and bodybuilding, you need to transfer that strength to real world, to real life, right? You talked about, like, you know, we all know these people who maybe have phenomenal physiques and have absolutely just incredible weightlifting capabilities, and they might not even have a job. You know, they're not really happy in life. They're not really successful in life. Sure, they're good at lifting weights, or maybe they have an amazing physique, but I am motivated and inspired by people who are able to take that strength from the gym and apply that to other aspects of their life, right? And do more than just compete at bodybuilding, or do more than just lift heavy weights. And so, yeah, so that's one point. As far as all the irons in the fire, so I have I'm the deputy commissioner and the chief medical officer for our state athletics committee. So I'm on the athletics commission. And in that role, I'm basically covering all the combat sports in our state, trying to help improve MMA and boxing in our state, make it safer for the athletes, make it more reasonable for promoters to come and to run events. I've worked with most of the major organizations, Bellator, UFC, Front Street Fights, and really enjoy that position. So I get to be cage side with a lot of MMA fighters, which then parallels well with Kaged Muscle because they have pro fighters, UFC fighters. And so that's one iron. I'm also the team doc for Kaged Muscle and a sponsored athlete for Kaged Muscle. I have a clinic, so yeah, I see patients here, sports medicine clinic. I run sort of my own clinic as well on the side at one of the local gyms called the Mecca Gym, and I basically do like consultations for fitness, nutrition, you know, some personal training. I really narrow down the scope there, and I just take a very select kind of special few clients. You know, like right now I've got a kid named Boone Bartolome, this cervical spinal injury kid that I'm working with, and then I've worked with a couple of NFL linebackers this last summer. So there's that, and then I've got 3 kids and my wife, and she's a fitness instructor as well. She works for Cycle Bar. Just recently was working for D1, and she just finished up working with those guys. And then on top of that, I'm working on research projects and trying to you know, build the fitness and the medical community, speaking at conferences. And lastly, I'm the vice president of a company called Remote Health Solutions, which is a telemedicine company that has a device that allows for exam capabilities, so we can put doctors in dangerous situations without endangering their lives. So you can put one of these into a combat medic zone, and doctors can do full physical exam and do procedures without having to be there next to the patient. So you can put one of these on an airplane or on a drilling rig, things like that, and be able to have real-time physical exams. So that's all of my stuff right now as far as like employment goes. I sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. I try to spend at least 1 or 2 hours of quality time with my family every day. I try to spend at least 1 hour lifting weights and at least 20 to 45 minutes a day doing cardio. I don't take lunch breaks at work. I work through lunch. You know, breakfast is usually spent eating and doing emails at the same time. And I try to spend at least, you know, a little bit of time on the weekends, you know, and not always, because I work at least 2, if not 3 weekends a month, but trying to decompress a little bit and find some quiet time. And usually that's only like 15 minutes, but I think that's important. I don't have days off. I was talking to a friend the other day about this. Like, I don't have like a day off. If I'm not in clinic, I'm filling that up with other things. So I don't look forward to days off. I look forward to time off. And so on Monday, I didn't have clinic, but I had like 6 hours worth of meetings. And so it was technically a day off from clinic, but I was still working. And so I spent 4 hours with my kids and wife and an hour at the gym. Then the rest of the day I spent working on meetings and stuff. And that was technically my day off. So I definitely stayed pretty busy, and it's been like that for the past like 7 or 8 years. When I was in residency, I worked a 24-hour shift every 5 days, in the hospital. So I'd be literally in the hospital working straight 24 hours. The next day I had a 24-hour mandatory off time. I could probably get in trouble for saying this, but during that 24-hour off time, I was the chief medical officer for a hospice company. I would go to home health visits and hospice visits with people who are passing away, and basically help people at end of life for 12 hours on my off time. And then the next morning I started clinic again and worked through clinic. And so I was working like 120 hours a week straight for 3 years, and I can probably count on one hand the number of full days off I took without doing any work.
Wow. So yeah, your default mode seems on. The one story that's interesting to me, and Ben was telling me about this before we even started talking, was the recovery from spinal trauma. Is that something that you're kind of like a specialist in at this point, or like, can you go into that at all? I know it's a patient, so you got HIPAA and all that, but yeah, I'm very curious. You're getting people walking, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't call myself a spinal specialist, but I'm a musculoskeletal specialist. And so basically with the patients I've had who have had neurologic injuries, I'm basically finding a way for them to improve what they have, and then trying to get neurons and synapses firing in other ways so that they can build upon things that aren't working. And I've had a few patients, some of them we've been successful with, some of them we haven't. But really, there's a certain point where there's a disconnection between medicine and physical therapy and strength training or personal training, right? So a lot of times doctors don't have the time or, quite frankly, the expertise in exercise prescription. And so I am a specialist in exercise prescription and nutrition. And so I can kind of fill that role. And then with physical therapy, a lot of times they do amazing with rehab, but then people get kind of back to where they were or where they should be, and then they need help going to that next level. That's not really what physical therapy is designed for. Therapy is to help you rehab and to get you back to where you were, and in some cases make you better than you were before, but most of the time not. Insurance doesn't cover so much, this, that, and the other. So there are limitations of what physical therapy can do. And then with personal trainers, if you get a great personal trainer, that's great, but not always are personal trainers qualified or as educated in human anatomy and biomechanics as perhaps they should be. I don't want to sound like I'm bad-mouthing personal trainers at all. I'm not, but I've seen personal trainers that I'm like, you have no business being a personal trainer. I don't care if you filled out the certificate or not. Like, you know what I mean? And so there's
just a very low barrier to entry with that kind of stuff. Like, you can just take a class online and be hired. And a lot of gyms don't want to spend too much on it. They want to make money. So to have the actual qualifications, the cost that it would take to have a highly certified or highly qualified personal trainer is usually a little bit too high for gyms. And like a quick shout out to that gym that you're talking about, Mecca, is almost like an anomaly. And the people at that gym are like all evidence-based, like educated people. I was blown away by the people I met when I went there.
Yeah, that's one reason why I like working there. I have a very, very close relationship with all their trainers. It's really pretty impressive. I send people to therapy all the time, and I explain exactly what I want. And then the therapist relays back to me how the patient's doing, and that's a great relationship. I do the same thing with the trainers at the Mecca. They all will send a patient or a client to me, and we'll work together. I'm like, this person has this problem. So femoral acetabular impingement syndrome. So their hip has too much coverage, and they're banging their bones back and forth, causing hip pain. They need to modify their activity. And so I can tell the trainer, this is the anatomy that they have. These are the biomechanical properties that we need to work around. This is how I would prefer that you change their programs, and then they can do that and get better. Instead of me just saying to the patient, you got to stop squatting because you're going to mess up your hip, right? So like, stop squatting, you're going to mess up your hip. No, that's not it at all. Like, I can talk to the trainer. We can find them a program that helps them to be able to achieve their goals without being in pain and without causing further damage. And that's an amazing relationship that I have with them. So I love that about the Mecca gym. But yeah, so I work with patients, who have had spinal cord injuries, and they have basically outworked their physical therapy, or their insurance won't pay for any more physical therapy visits, and then they go and get a personal trainer to help them in the gym. And the personal trainer's like, I don't know what to do with you. I'm not sure what you're capable of. I don't want to hurt you, all those things. And so I found a hybrid in there with some of the trainers at the Mecca, and then myself helping out some of these people and being able to help them out. Because a neurologic injury puts your joints at risk. It really does, because your joints move abnormally, and then that creates wear and tear. And, if they can't feel certain things, then the sensation's not there. And, if there's an accident, they drop a weight, like, it's definitely dangerous, but it's a controlled risk. We definitely take all the precautions we need to make sure that they improve without getting hurt.
Cool.
Nice. Is there anything that you've suggested that Kris Gethin do, or anything like that? Like any fun things that you could tell us about that?
Yeah.
Things he has or has not listened to you about?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to I don't want to say too much about his medical history, so I don't want to crossing barriers there. But I think definitely with some of the injuries that he has mentioned on social media, I feel like are safe for me to talk about. But he's had a couple. He had a groin strain that was really bad, and so we talked about his gait analysis, and I kind of talked about how he was getting ready for his Ironman, and I was like, look, talk to your biking and your running coach. Let's change your gait stance and your stride a little bit. And he did that, and it got better, and he healed up, and that worked really well. Some of the shoulder activities that we've done together with his shoulder, I've had surgery, he rehabbed that beautifully, and he's now feels no pain and is just as strong as he's ever been with his shoulders. He had a knee injury that, it was a minor injury, but we were able to get him sort of working around that, and some of the training modalities that I talked to him about, like, hey, do it this way instead of this way. And that made a big difference for him. That's kind of what I do with the other Kaged Muscle athletes too. So I don't want to, one of the other athletes had a neck issue, and I was able to show that person a way to do, just watching their biomechanics and how they lifted weights. And I was like, I think if you change this and this, it'll improve the structure, which will then improve the form. And I think your pain will improve, and it works, and so being able to have that very critical eye on the biomechanical properties, I think helps people. And, I think they listen to me because I live the lifestyle. If you go talk to a doctor that's super out of shape and doesn't look like they lift, and they tell you to do, even if it is the right information, it's harder to take them seriously if they don't look like they do it themselves,
Yeah, you have
it's tough to find the team of professionals to help you out. Like I go to a chiropractor that used to be a football player, and he works with a lot of athletes, so it's close. And there's been multiple times where I ask, I always have trap issues. Since before I was lifting heavy, I always had tight traps. It's just, I think it's part of my lankiness. But at one point I asked him, what can I do to make this stop happening? He's like, honestly, you should stop deadlifting. But I know that's not going to happen. So we can find other ways to work around it. I think that's one of the realizations in being a team with athletes is you want to tell them you probably should stop putting yourself in this danger, but it's not going to happen. You have to kind of accept that and work around it. So
right.
It's hard to find people.
Runners are the worst, man. Oh my gosh. Runners are the worst because they just run. That's what they do. And I'm like, you got a stress fracture in your foot. You got to stop running. And they're like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, let's ride a bike, let's swim, let's strength train. And it's almost like I ask them to stop breathing.
Yeah.
It's like, geez. So yeah, I love that about athletes. I love that about people who have a drive to compete in whatever sport it is. It doesn't matter if it's shuffleball or powerlifting. I don't care. Love that drive. That's the difference between medicine and sports medicine. When people come into a medicine clinic, doctor might tell them, yeah, you got a stress fracture. And people that aren't athletes or who aren't physically active are going to say, well, how long can I be off work? And the people who are coming to the sports medicine clinic, the first thing they ask is, when can I go back to work? When can I go back to my activity?
I love that.
And that's addicting, man.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned how well Kris Gethin rehabbed, and I think that's one thing that I see with athletes. I'm having some sort of delt issues right now, and my coach sent me this whole list of shoulder things to do. And the third day is how many times have you done it? I was like, I've done it every day. It's well, I wanted to get better. So of course I did the things that were going to make me better. And I'm always kind of confused when people get prescribed work and they don't actually work on it. It's like, well, did you or did you not want to actually get better? And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It's like people just want time off of work instead of getting to it.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm going to put you in a hypothetical situation just for like our standard visitor. Someone is, let's just say it's a standard gym bro, no one going for any records or anything, but 25-year-old male, and their shoulder hurts when they bench. Like, what do they do to get the right doctor who's got like your type of specific knowledge? Like, what do they search for? What do they can't diagnose anything themselves. Their shoulder hurts. Like, that's it. And they've kind of gotten stuck at 225 or something like that. Like, what's the process that a regular civilian goes through to find someone like you? Let's say if they live in Columbus, Ohio or whatever, a pretty good city, you know?
Yep. The first thing they want to do is find a sports medicine doc. So, if you're there, I would say in most areas of the world, you're going to be able to find people who are sports medicine trained. And so, that'll be listed as like their qualification, like sports medicine trained. They don't always have to be orthopedic surgeons or orthopedic doctors. They can be primary care, PM&R, pediatrics, internal medicine, but they've got a fellowship training that allows them to see things differently. And so you search up a sports medicine doc and make an appointment. And the first thing really is like to look at your biomechanics and to look at your structure, your anatomy, and to get a good physical exam. That's why I recommend people go see a doctor, because there are lots and lots and lots of different healthcare providers who can evaluate and treat. But really you need a diagnosis, so that once you have the right diagnosis, then you get the correct treatment plan. And you can go see all the other modalities can be part of your treatment plan, but you got to have the right diagnosis first. You got to understand what the problem is before you go and try to fix it. I think that unfortunately is one of the problems with social media and with the internet is, people will list their symptoms. They'll go online and they'll say, well, you got shoulder pain. It's got to be your rotator cuff or your rotary cuff. I hear that all the time. It's got to be your rotary cuff. Your rotary cuff's all jacked up. And you're a 24-year-old male. You don't have a rotary cuff to begin with, number one. And number two, your rotator cuff is fine. But those symptoms are consistent with like a weightlifter's shoulder. And so they'll be like, well, it's got to be what it is. But really it's not. And then you go in and get the doc's office and you can get the right imaging and the right physical exam. And then they can give you a diagnosis and a treatment plan. So, I think that's where you start with, is just a sports medicine physician.
Gotcha. Okay.
And because there's like this popular kind of thing going on. It's like getting into a doctor's office like that. Do you feel like a lot of times they're competent with working with athletes? Because like I go to urgent care if I have like the flu, right? And the first thing they do, they weigh me and they start to talk to me about my lifestyle, because I have a BMI of like 33. Yeah, like I'm morbidly obese, as said by the U.S. government. Like, do you would say that most sports docs would be open to working with an athlete and not hounding them about their lifestyle, kind of accepting and treating them as such?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
I've never gotten in with one. That would be something I would be interested in working with, because you definitely understand, like, not all of the issues that we run into, or you don't want to go to a normal doctor for it.
Right.
So.
Yep. And that's, and athletes get sick too, right? So like when I took care of the Boise State's football team last year, like I was taking care of the kids that got pneumonia, that got, the flu and things like that. And we want to know, like, can you compete while you're sick? Well, yeah, this is what we're going to do to adjust your workouts, but yeah, you can still compete. Yeah, we look at people differently through the eye of an athlete, because most sports medicine doctors are athletes in some way, shape, or form, whether they're tennis players or golfers or swimmers or there aren't as many weightlifters. There just really aren't as many weightlifters. I'm finding more, but a lot of them lift weights, but we're different, right? So like a weightlifter versus someone who lifts weights, there's a difference there. So I don't know a lot of doctors who are weight lifters like me, but I know a lot of docs that lift weights.
I see a lot of strength coaches that came from weightlifting formerly, but not a lot of doctors.
Right.
I'm not sure what it is, but cool. Awesome.
All right. Yeah.
So
I was gonna get back to some of the Kaged Muscle stuff. So what is your Kaged Muscle stack that you've been using?
Right now I'm using Creaclear.
Yes.
To try to gain a little size. I've not used creatine for a number of years because I have a genetic kidney disease that my sweet mother gave me. And so I have to be really careful with creatine. I've gone into rhabdo twice in my life, and I can tell you I do not want to do that again. That sucks. So I have to be really careful about creatine. And I've been able to use the CreaClear now for the past like 2 or 3 months, and I've had no problems at all. So
have you gotten blood work on that? Like, I don't need you to
Yeah.
make any claims, but so.
Oh yeah, I've
Right.
done blood work on it. Absolutely, like tracking my creatine levels, my creatinine levels haven't changed. So
Really?
my doc's good with me using it. Yeah.
But if you use regular creatine monohydrate, would you have way higher creatinine
6
levels?
weeks. 6 weeks. That's it. That's all I can use it. And then my
Really?
creatinine will be so high that I've got to come off it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I might want to
Yeah.
I love doing blood tests and stuff, so I almost like want to tinker with that, but I don't think I have a problem with the regular monohydrate, but I do notice that I really enjoy just plopping some CreaClear into whatever powder
Yeah.
I'm drinking.
Yep. Love the CreaClear. I love the Amino Synergy. So I use the Amino Synergy during my workouts. I use HydroCharge kind of all day long, sipping on my water. Like I've got a drawer full of it right here, actually, like my little snack drawer. So I got the HydroCharge here. And then throughout the day, I'll use some of the whey isolate. So I've got some of the whey isolate here at work. After my workouts, I use the recaged. I use the pre-caged, obviously, before my workouts. And I think that's, for the most part right now, that's pretty much what I'm using. So the pre-caged, the Amino Synergy, the HydroCharge, the recaged, the whey protein. Oh, and then I've got some casein protein at night, too, that I'll use to like make a pudding with, like the casein, chocolate casein pudding. Let's see, what else have I got? I use citrulline on, like, just citrulline and the amino synergy that doesn't have caffeine if I'm working out late at night, because I can still get that vascularization and feel like I'm getting the blood flowing without getting all, getting that caffeine, so that it makes it harder for me to sleep. So those things for sure.
Yeah,
I've always loved the sorry. I was just saying, I like when you talk about the line, it's so simple. That's what I've always loved about the Kaged Muscle lines. Like, there's no gimmicks, there's no bells and whistles. It's very simple. It's to the point. It's tried and true, and everything's very research backed. You don't have to talk about like their, award-winning testosterone booster or muscle builder. It's just, it's honestly all stuff that you would normally find in the diet, but from good sources, and it's high quality. What were you gonna say, Mike?
No, I was just gonna make a joke about the 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, which I don't think I could be able to. I can't do as much as you do, no matter what, pretty much. So 4 hours of sleep won't cut it, but definitely, like, if you take your stims too late in the day, it will no doubt cut into sleep quality if you do like any sleep tracking or anything like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Kaged Muscle doesn't have like a stim-free version of pre-cage, so you're kind of left there to create your own. So. A little idea of maybe for you and Brian to get together. Yeah,
that's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, and also a plant-based protein I think would be beneficial, because I've known some people who, if they're lactose intolerant, they may not be able to use whey protein, and so having a plant-based protein may be something that'd be worthwhile looking into.
Right, that's one thing we're noticing, is that a lot of people aren't necessarily using some of those proteins because they're vegan or vegetarian so much as they are more going dairy free. And I know that, like, for me, I can handle a scoop of whey, no problem. But if I have like 4 or 5 scoops of whey, I definitely feel a little bit inflamed the next day. And I wake up a little bit more sore if I overdo it, especially at night. So I think like some people are starting to realize that, and they want to go dairy free, or they're just like tinkering around for a month. And I have to believe that there's probably something in the works at some point, but who knows? Like I said, like Kaged Muscle isn't going to rush anything to the market. And that's what you got to really appreciate about Kris, is that he's a nut with it. And we want that, and we expect that. Like, there's some brands where you want to see a new product every week, and the Kaged Muscle is not one of them. We're happy with what we get, because we know when we get it, it's going to be good.
It seems on brand for them too. If you watch Kris's like Live to 100 drink in the morning, what he put like with the reds and the greens and the glutamine, all the fermented sources and stuff. I think he just posted a new version of it the other day. It seems on brand for like a plant protein to come out there. I'd love to see them do it greens as well.
Yeah, I think Dr.
Did we lose Kaleb?
Yeah, I think we just froze up. We lost Kaleb there, but that was a really good conversation. We really appreciate him taking the time, because he spends a lot of time with patients, so he's got to deal with a little bit of that right now. The only question I was going to ask is like what we could expect from him with Kaged Muscle. So maybe we'll get a little bit of a follow up and maybe have him like patch in a 1-minute video or something like that. But what a very multi-talented guy who has so many different things. We could have steered that conversation into so many different angles. And I almost like wonder, like, did I go in the right direction when I asked a certain question? We had to bring it back to Kaged Muscle here and there. But yeah, my next question is like, all right, what's next? Like, this guy can do a ton of stuff. Can we see some like content on the Kaged Muscle social media channels from him? Because there's a lot of things like these people that we interview have so much information in their brains, and we sometimes just need like a good venue to let it rip. So like, I would love.
Sometimes I feel like it's the millennial in me. I'm just like, oh, I wish he would make more posts, make more content. Like I meet these interesting people. I'm like, why don't I know about this person? Why don't they tell us all about their lives all the time? And then you realize he's got a wife and kids and 17 different jobs and doesn't have time to be posting blogs and content and stuff. But man, I almost feel bad. I don't want to say like I discounted at first when they were like, we've got this local doctor that we'd like you to talk to. I was just like, well, it sounds like a local doc. I didn't realize the huge amount of stuff that he does and all the things he's interested in and involved with.
I think they got to present him as team Kaged Muscle. They got to present him as Kaged Muscle's team doctor, and I think that like sports whatever it is, team doctor. But there's a ton of stuff that he could do. It's almost like I don't know how much this costs, or I should know, but how much it costs or how much like budget Kaged Muscle will throw at it. But if you could just get like a video guy to follow him around for 1 day a month, and then he's gonna bust into, and you don't have to get the patients on camera or anything, but he's gonna bust into whatever rant it is. Be like, dude, these doctors need to stop telling people to stop squatting. Here's what we fix, like whatever the rant may be or whatever. You're gonna get like 10 killer pieces of content that we simply just can't do without going to school and seeing doctors or seeing patients for 5 years. So this is like 15 years of information that you can't recreate, especially because he's a weightlifter, like he said too. So like, I don't know. Obviously he's not going to be the one that's going to fire up the cameras. It's almost like you need to have someone follow people around like this for just a day once in a while, and you're going to get some nuggets. And I don't know if that is a valid business model, but like, I want to get that information out there, and it's good to have. And it's tough. Like,
he's in Boise with Gethin. So and I know there are video guys out there, Nick too. So I mean, I would love to see content with him. I know that I'm going to put that in the email follow up for this because I want to see it. I think he was wildly interesting, and I mean, we didn't even break anything about the UFC stuff that he does, the fighting stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, all you need to know is this guy works with people who have broken their spine and now they can lift weights again. Like, most, if not all, surgeons outside of that will tell you, do not ever put a load bearing on your spine ever again after that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean. But I think we talked about it maybe for a little bit too long, but we got the point across that like a lot of these people that he's working with are people who aren't interested in just living. They're interested in thriving, right? They're being interested.
And I have some friends in sports medicine, and I've never heard them put it like he did. Like I almost think you should use that as the intro clip, is like the difference between someone who goes to sports medicine or someone who just does medicine. And they're waiting. How long can I be out for? No, when can I get back in is what you want. And that's so cool. Like that kind of just motivated me right there. So I
felt that. I get that. I know like anytime I've had any kind of small setback, it's like, I understand what he means. Like when I was in middle school and I got a cold, I was like, can I be out for 3 days? Like, do I have to go back to school? Mm-hmm. But now it's like, no, like every single day you wake up in pain, you're thinking about like how you could be waking up and getting back to where you were.
Right. Yeah.
It's tough. I remember the first time I met Gethin was at a Vitamin Shop show a long time ago, and he was in that sling from having his shoulder worked on. And it was just like, if you ever see a person who lives athletically, like in a sling, it's like the most depressing thing because it's killing them. So, man, thank God for people like him because I think about like what athletes used to have to do before we had competent medical help for them. Mm-hmm. Like even just him talking about like 2 back surgeries, a hip surgery, and like a shoulder surgery. So like you think about like 50 years ago, we probably couldn't have been able to do any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance that a lot of these people they wouldn't be pushing the limits possibly but those who did would probably be in wheelchairs and stuff. So it's so cool to see how far we come along. But at the same time, it still takes work. Like everyone can be special in some capacity, but you're going to have to work at it. Like, there's a few genetic freaks out there. Even they like to get to the pinnacle, have to work. And when it comes to the recovery too, it's going to be twice as much work. And I think he makes that pretty clear. So yeah, overall, I really hope Kaged Muscle finds a way to pull him away or just join him for day in the life and just get some cool content, because that was a glimpse into like, whoa, that dude knows a lot of stuff and we never heard of him. So this is like a total, very cool introduction.
Yeah, I think maybe if they can marry that with, I mean, I don't want anyone to get injured, but if someone on the team gets injured, they can cover that. Because I think you don't see a lot of content on people who are getting their way back up, who are rehabbing and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that's important content, because I know that when you're in that, you can feel very isolated. So to show that kind of road back.
Well, it's depressing too. Like if that's what your life is, and you need to have a good comeback story every now and then, but like you don't want to turn on that camera when you're having a bad day, and you're having a bad day when you can't train and your life is training. So it's like this negative feedback loop that can happen. And man, you don't want to see people like, seeing you hurt and everything, but that is kind of part of the story. And that's the humanizing element that I think that, we do need to see occasionally on social media, that it's not all beautiful plates of steak on the plate and great lifts. Like there's some bad stuff happens too, but hey, there's a recovery story along with it. I also think like this is something that Kaged Muscle, they can't really advertise him, but like, it would make me want, if I'm a hard training athlete, it would make me want to be on Team Kaged Muscle more than any other team. Like, dude, they got a team doctor. Why don't other major brands have a team doctor? Maybe they do. They don't really talk about it though. Or maybe their team doctor isn't really like living the life like he is. So I think that's like, I don't know, that kind of made.
I think it has a lot more to do with how companies position themselves. Like a lot more companies are just looking to slap their logo on an athlete. And I don't mean this to mean to any company out there that's watching, but like I think a lot of companies are mostly interested in slapping their logo on someone's shirt, making their money off their affiliate, and paying them a salary to get their influencer numbers sent over, instead of cultivating a group of people and helping them and lifting them up. I think that Kaged does a really good job of selecting athletes very carefully that fit their mold, that are interested in pursuing the same things that really Kris is, which is a more efficient, better athletic life and reaching huge goals. And having a team doctor is going to only help that. So I can see the difference in that. And look at some other videos that we've done. We've had Amanda Acapinti, the acupuncturist on Team NutriBio.
Right.
You can see that with a lot of good companies that they support their own, they provide resources, they source and cultivate that together. So I can definitely see why Kaged Muscle is different for putting that together. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, dude. I love them. I love the moves that they make. It's totally awesome. All right, cool. Well, I'm about empty on this bad boy, so I think I got to go do a little bit of training at least. It was going to be an off day. Honestly, it was going to be an off day, and I realized that I did squats yesterday, and my back and my core is more sore than anything else, which means I have a lot of deficiencies to work on. So after a conversation like that, I'm gonna do a little bit and then get back on the computer. So
cool, man. Well, enjoy. I'm going to go do some shoulder exercises and try to get as healthy as Kaleb.
Yeah, there you go. Hopefully without as many surgeries. All right, signing out, Mike and Ben. And we missed the ending for Dr. Kaleb, but we will hopefully hear more from him and Team Kaged Muscle. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And subscribe to the channel on all social media platforms.
Hey, guys. Really grateful to be on the podcast today with Mike and Ben, the guys from PricePlow. Y'all have an amazing website, do some great work in comparing products for people who are looking for supplements and nutrition information. And I think you guys do a great job of producing great content for folks. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak today with you guys about my involvement with Kaged Muscle and in my fitness journey and sort of my career path. As far as what's coming up next for me with Kaged Muscle, I'm definitely going to be involved with helping out with some of the trainers that Kris Gethin's putting out and giving nutritional and supplemental information for people that they can follow to try to get healthier, fitter lives. and we'll be giving information on rehab, tips and tricks on exercise and different modalities that you can use for training, and then also helping out on the sidelines with athletes who have injuries and who have consultations and things like that. So moving forward, hopefully being able to get in depth a little bit more with some of the scientific aspects of the supplementation world, and some big things coming on the horizon. So really grateful again for the opportunity to speak with you guys today, and really looking forward to chatting again. So you guys have a great day and appreciate it, and talk to you later.
Welcome to PricePlow.